Welcome to the Couch Scouts.
Hold up, we got to start that over. Reset.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast, episode 57. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. And Matt Jackson.
Gotta love the unedited version of this stuff, man.
Gotta do it, man. I hit play on the intro video, and it was like, why did it start halfway through the intro video? So, you know what? That's what edits are for. So the people listening on the audio feed, y'all will get it right the first time. Yeah, there you go. I mean, they will now because we're talking about it, so they'll know it happened. But here we go. All right. So on this episode of the podcast, we are going to be doing a 2025 rookie mock in light of all we've seen in the college football season so far. And so for those that have been following the channel since last year, you may be wondering, hey, when are we going to start getting into these rookie breakdowns? When are we going to start getting into the film study and kind of breaking down these prospects? And that is going to start on our next podcast, which will not be next week because we're taking the week off for Thanksgiving. But first week of December, we're going to be diving into the rookies. And so I thought this would be interesting for us tonight to kind of see where we're at now before we start all of our deep dive. And it'll be really interesting to see how different this mock draft looks when we get to April and we've studied all these prospects. So tonight we're going to go 2 rounds. By the time we get to April, of course, we'll be going 4 rounds. And, you know, some of these guys in this 2-round mock probably won't even be in that 4-round mock, either because they've fallen so far in our eyes or because they decided to go back to school for another year, whatever. And there will be guys that we don't talk about tonight who end up being in the first 2 rounds come April. So this is just a very preliminary look at everything based on what we know so far. And I'm excited to get into it. Before we do, I wanted to take a quick second to shout out our website, CouchScouts.com. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely need to get in your browser, CouchScouts.com. And we have all kinds of great tools. We've got an all-22 film room with Devi and IDP players in there. We have we're going to be working on a monster rookie guide covering over 60 prospects in depth. Basically, the ultimate cheat sheet for your rookie draft. That's going to be released in April. That'll be for our site members. We do a bonus podcast every single week. So after we get off this show tonight, we're going to be doing a little Thanksgiving special, talking about dynasty players that we are thankful to have on our rosters. So that'll be for our members up on the site tonight. And you can book a one-on-one consultation with us to get some advice and talk strategy on a dynasty team of your choosing. We actually have one of our members signed up for one at 10 o'clock tonight. So I'm going to be, it's 7:30 Eastern now. After we do our 2 podcasts, I'm going to be hopping on a Zoom call with Brian. So shout out, Brian. Excited to talk about your Devi League and talk some strategy with you. So all of that is on our site. You can check it out. We haven't talked about this, so I'm just going to say it. And if you guys disagree, then sorry. But we're going to do a Black Friday special. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what kind of percentage off we'll give you guys, but keep an eye out because we're going to be running a Black Friday special. So follow us on social media. Keep an eye on the Discord. We'll be announcing that pretty soon. But with all that being said, let's get into the show tonight. And I'm really excited to get into the mock. You guys were gracious enough to give me the 101. I feel like the host is always supposed to give somebody else the 101 because I've been talking for too long.
We figure we get the easy pick out of the way, man.
Yeah. So, and we're going to have to kind of speed run this thing because we try to shoot for our shows to be 30 to 40 minutes and we got 24 picks to talk about. So you do the math. It's going to, a pretty speed run here. So I'll start. Ashton Jeanty running back, Boise State. And I know it's a Superflex league. I don't think I mentioned that. We're running Superflex tight end premium for this mock draft. And so in a Superflex tight end premium, I'm still taking Ashton Jeanty 101 at this point. He is, I know he's playing at Boise State. He's not playing in a big Power 4 conference. But, I mean, he's talking about breaking Barry Sanders records that, excuse me, have stood since the 80s. And the tape matches up with the numbers. Every single week, he just looks like he's playing a video game out there. The contact balance, the speed, the elusiveness, the pass catching. He is the full, complete package. I think he's going to be a first-round pick in the real NFL draft, and I think he's very deserving of the 101. It's possible a quarterback could end up being the 101 if they get the draft capital and all that kind of stuff, but for now, I'm rolling with Ashton Jeanty, and we'll send it over to you, Rupert, for pick 102.
I'm also bypassing quarterback and going with Ted McMillan, wide receiver of Arizona State. Just a guy that is tall, 6'4", big, can dominate on the perimeter and jump ball situations. Incredible, spectacular catches, pretty much week in and week out at this point. And then on top of it, he has the movement skills and route running to really round out his game. He moves very well for a guy that's 6'4", very quick in and out of his breaks. He's going to be a superstar in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Quick correction there. Arizona, not Arizona State. Just wanted to shout out our Arizona fans. I don't want them to feel slighted in here. So, Arizona Wildcats, Ted McMillan. Probably a top 10 pick in the NFL draft and a beast of a prospect. So that's a great pick there. Jackson, we'll go to you at the 103.
I will not be bypassing quarterback at the 103. I'm going to be taking Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. Look, in a Superflex league, quarterbacks will and always will rule that position and rule the draft capital. You're looking at a guy that's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, a guy that has that has progressively gotten better each and every year. I mean, he's almost passing for 70% completion percentage right now. Almost 3,500 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This is a guy that's extremely mobile. He can take off and get you points as a rusher, and he's primarily the reason that Miami is doing as well as they're doing. I mean, he's a potential Heisman candidate right now. I mean, in a Superflex leagues, you got to take the quarterback, and you're getting a pretty good one in Cam Ward.
This is a guy. Shout out Rich Dotson. We'll be probably saying this is a guy quite a bit, as he tends to as well. If you watch Dynasty Nerds, they give him a hard time because he says that constantly. At the 104, I am going to go with Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback, and I think that is the kicker, right? Wide receiver / cornerback. So is he going to play all wide receiver, all cornerback? Is he going to play both? We don't really know. But from a talent standpoint, I mean, he's had an incredible season. The traits are all over. They just jump off the page. And when you're watching the film, to me, Travis Hunter looks like the second best wide receiver in this draft class if he plays wide receiver. So we'll see what happens. For now, I'm rolling with him at the 104. And
I almost feel like he has to play wide receiver. I mean, he's a much better wide receiver than he is a quarterback. So I think teams will see that. It's a roll of the dice, but I think it's one with his upside that you got to make.
Yeah, I don't study the defensive side because I'm a fantasy analyst. And so some people do. We have an IDP film room for those people, but I am not one of those people. And so I don't know if Travis Hunter is an elite corner. I defer to somebody else's expertise on that, but I know that he's a really, really, really good wide receiver prospect. And I think the draft capital is absolutely going to be there. And I think if a team takes him as high as I think they're going to take him, it's probably to play both sides of the ball. So, yeah, I'm going to throw the dart here on Travis Hunter. We'll go to you, Rupert, at the 105.
I'm going with his quarterback. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce Shedeur Sanders.
Shedeur.
Quarterback of Colorado. it seems like he's probably going to get hyped up here behind Cam Ward. Seems like a dual threat quarterback, and it's just hard to pass up halfway through the round pretty much on a guy that may end up going first half of the first round. So ended up going a quarterback here after bypassing that pick 2.
I will say he's not a quarterback. He's a dual threat. He's a dual threat if he runs backwards, if backwards fantasy points count.
No, we're giving Rupert a hard time here. We corrected him on the Arizona thing, and now we're correcting his Shedeur Sanders analysis. Just to give you guys, the listeners, a little bit of context here. Jackson and I play Devy. We watch college football all the time. Rupert does not. So if anybody's analysis is going to change significantly between now and when he does the deep dive, it's going to be Rupert. And so he is, he's bearing with us tonight on this mock draft. But Shedeur Sanders
probably should have prefaced the show with saying I'm not the Devy guy, so take my picks with a grain of salt.
But to be fair, I do think Shedeur Sanders is deserving of going this high in the mock draft. He is projected anywhere you look to be a first-round quarterback, and a first-round quarterback is absolutely in play at the 105 in a Superflex mock draft. And I think he's talented. Now, just because he's Deion's son, you would assume that he's a dual threat. He's actually really not much of a rushing threat at all. He has some escapability to get away from pressure in the pocket, but he doesn't really look to run. And he's not that fast. So I did want to give that context to our listeners, but definitely a good prospect and very worthy of being picked here at the 105. And so we'll go to you, Jackson, for the 106.
Yeah, the 106, I took Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. Luther Burden's had not so great season this year. A lot of that you can blame on quarterback. His quarterback has not been great, and that's produced to a step back for him, but he's still everything that we thought he was a year ago. He's fantastic after the catch. He has solid hands. He really transformed into being this kind of gadget screen roll to actually being a guy that you could utilize downfield as a deep ball guy, which is a step forward that I've liked in this game. I'm not worried about what happened this year. I'm kind of chalking that up to a bad quarterback play. He's still one of the best wide receivers in this class. So 106, I'm taking Luther Burden.
Yeah, and I would say that the quarterback, Brady Cook is decent, but they have had a few weeks there where Brady Cook's been hurt and the backup has been abysmal. And when we say down season, he still had 575 yards and 5 touchdowns already with some weeks left to play. So he's not having a bad season. It's less than his 1,200 yard, 9 touchdown season of last year. And there are reasons for that. And there have been some disappointing games in there. But even this week, big ranked matchup against South Carolina came down to the wire. He had 8 catches, 69 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown was spectacular. It should have been a game winner because they went up with a minute left and it was a one-handed grab. And then he broke a tackle to get into the end zone for a massive play for his team. And then the defense, South Carolina went down the field and scored on them in a minute basically. And the defense just didn't hold up. But yeah, Burden's still a great prospect. And I think that's a good pick there. So we will go back to me at the 107. And I went with Isaiah Bond, wide receiver out of Texas. This is my guy. And I have seen some mock drafts lately where he's gone round 2. I think that's way too low for him. Like rookie mocks where he's gone round 2. I think he's going to be a first round NFL draft pick. I think he absolutely should go in the first round of rookie mocks. I don't know if people have a bad taste in their mouth because Xavier Worthy has underperformed, and they are a similar archetype of player, a little undersized, both super, super fast. And I reserve the right to change my mind when I get into the deep dive. But from what I've seen, even as I've been cutting film for our film room and for the Dynasty Nerds film room, and I'm cutting these Texas games, the route running for Isaiah Bond jumps off the screen. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think he's more than just a deep threat. He's incredible after the catch. And I think he's a really, really good player, and people are still sleeping on him a little bit. He had a few down weeks in the middle of the season because he was hurt, and everybody jumped off the hype train. And I'm just telling you, he is a stud. So I took Isaiah Bond here at the 107, and we'll go to you, Rupert, at the 108.
I'm going with what is looking like to be the RB2 of the draft, Amari Hampton, running back of UNC. Been seeing a lot of people hyping him up, saying that they're their RB2 this year, and he's just been balling out all year and just destroyed Wake Forest this past week. And he has a really good combination of speed and power. And he's a guy that in my Debbie League that I co-own with Cooper, we were debating Hampton and another guy that we'll talk about later, and we went with the latter, and we have been regretting it the last 3 months. But it just seems like too good a value here towards the end of the first round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, already 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns with 31 receptions, 281 yards receiving, and another receiving touchdown on top of it. So you're talking about a guy that is he is at 1,700 all-purpose yards, and the season's not even over yet. Like the regular season is not even over, much less any bowl games, anything like that. So he's having a monster year. The UNC offense is not what it has been either, and so other teams know like he's basically their only weapon. Just got to shut down Amari and Hampton, and you'll probably win the game. And they can't do it. So he's a bell cow, and he's playing really well. So I like that pick. At the 109, we're back to you, Jackson.
Sorry, I was on mute there. At the 109, I'm taking Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from The Ohio State University. Cooper's over there shaking his head. Yeah. Was that you that put the emoji?
Yeah. I put the poop emoji right there. If you're listening to this show and you think it's super snooty and conceited when people say The Ohio State, leave a comment and tell Jackson how much of a loser he is. Sorry to the Ohio State fans out there.
Egbuka is a guy. Here's a guy. I'm going to stop saying that here in a second. He's a guy that just feels like he's been around forever, right? He's been in the league, or he's been in college football for his entire eligible seasons, it feels like. Back in 2022, he caught over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, and then he's been overshadowed a little bit. He had to deal with Marvin Harrison kind of stealing his thunder a little bit, and he's had some injuries plague him. But Emeka Egbuka is a guy that just is really good at football. He's not overly big. He's not overly athletic, but he's just a good wide receiver. And I think he slipped down this far because we've kind of gotten bored with him a little bit. He's a quarterback security blanket. He has sure hands, and I think he's going to make a difference, especially in PPR leagues at the next level. We forget about him because there's been so many other guys that have come up through the ranks, but he's still just a really solid wide receiver. And I think when you're looking at value, especially at the back of the first round of rookie drafts, you're not going to find much better value than somebody like Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, I like that pick for sure. We're back to me at the 110, and I am going to go with Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. And this felt a little spicy to me when I made the pick. I think in most mocks, it's just so easy to overlook the tight end and go with, the picks that feel a little bit more fun. But Colston Loveland is so good. This is a tight end premium mock draft. I feel really confident that he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think when I watch the tape on him, he's such a good route runner. He has the ball skills to win in contested catch situations. He can pick up extra yards after the catch. He's everything that you're looking for in a fantasy football receiving tight end. He's already got 53 catches for 560 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season, which might not seem like a crazy stat line, but that's got to be like 80% of the Michigan passing offense, right? I mean, goodness, they have no quarterback. It's so ugly there, and yet Colston Loveland continues to produce, and I think he's going to be a really good tight end prospect. And so, yeah, I went with Colston Loveland here at the 110. And we're back to you, Rupert. 111. Who you got?
I reserved the right to change my opinion about which running back I went here, but I went with Trayvon Henderson, a guy that was pretty much the consensus RB1 last year before he surprised everyone, decided to go back to Ohio State. And again, my philosophy was just it felt like too good a value to get a guy that his shine has gone down a little bit after going back to school and having another running back join that running back room, but just felt like too good a value.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the raw stats are down this year because he's splitting with Quinshon Judkins, but he's the most efficient he's ever been. He's averaging almost 7.5 yards per carry as a rusher, and he's getting involved in the receiving game too. So I like the pick there. I do think he has lost some of his shine. But I think he's got a chance to be in the conversation for all the way as high as RB2 in the class. But it's such a deep class. I mean, really from 2 through like 9, I could see the order changing drastically for me based on our tape study, based on the draft capital, the landing spot, all of that kind of stuff. So, Jackson, you went with the other Ohio State running back at 112. Tell us why you picked Quinshon Judkins.
So Quinshon Judkins early on in this process is probably my RB2 in this class, if I had to rank him right now. Yes, he's splitting carries with Trayvon Henderson, but you're talking about somebody that is, as a runner, is explosive in all caps. I mean, the speed that this guy has is phenomenal. He's got great contact balance. He finishes runs with some real power. I mean, there was one run on those circulating on Twitter a couple of days ago where he just bulldozed a guy for a first down, which you didn't really think was in his game, but apparently it is. He's a great pass catching running back. And if I'm somebody that's got the 112, which means I just won my fantasy championship, if I'm getting a guy like Quinshon Judkins at 112, like I'm doing victory laps. Like that's a phenomenal value for a fantastic running back.
Yep. I feel he's probably going to be a day 2 pick. I think he's deserving of that. He's got great size, listed at 6 foot, 219 pounds. Similar to what I said about Trayvon Henderson, the raw numbers are down because he's in that carry committee, but he's averaging 6.8 yards a carry, and he looks good on tape. I've liked him since his freshman year. He came in as a 3-star true freshman, earned his way onto the field, beat out Zach Evans, who at the time, obviously now hindsight, it's like, okay, Zach Evans was maybe not as good as we thought that he was, but he was like a highly touted 5-star prospect that they brought in through the transfer portal, intending to feature in their offense. And by the end of his true freshman season, Judkins had beat that guy out, won the starting job, and he ran for almost 1,600 yards in the SEC as a true freshman. So yeah, he's got multiple years of really good film on tape. I think he's a really exciting running back prospect, and that's a great snag there at the 112. So we're back to me at the top of the second round.
Do you want to quickly do a recap of the first 12 picks?
Yeah, I'll do a recap of the first round here. So at the 101, I went with Ashton Jeanty, running back, Boise State. At the 102, Rupert took Tet McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona. At the 103, Jackson took Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. At the 104 was Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback, Colorado. 105, Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. 106 was Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. At 107, I took Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas. At the 108, Omarion Hampton, running back, UNC. 109, Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. 110, Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. At the 111, Trayvon Henderson, running back, Ohio State. And at the 112, Quinshon Judkins, also running back, also Ohio State. And here I am on the clock at the 201. And, we had 4 running backs go in the first round of that mock draft. And there's still a lot of really good ones on the board. This is a much better running back class than we had last year. It's really deep. There's a lot of talent. I went with Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. He has been a rapid riser this year, from a guy that was not on a lot of people's radars to some people have him as high as the RB2 behind Genty in the class. And he's a guy that I think will very much be in that conversation. Once everybody digs into the tape and all that kind of stuff, I think he has as good a chance to end up being the consensus RB2 as any of the guys that we've talked about. He's a big boy, listed at 6 foot, 225 pounds. He's a bruiser, but he also is second only to Ashton Genty in a number of significant metrics, like yards after contact per attempt, forced missed tackles, big play rate. Like, this guy has been a big play machine. He's rushed for 1,300 yards and 20 touchdowns for Iowa this year. Again, similar to what we said about Hampton, he's like the only option on that offense. Their quarterback stinks. They've got nothing going for them except Caleb Johnson, and yet he finds ways to produce week in and week out. 7 yards per carry. 7 yards per carry. And it's like nothing but stacked boxes that he's facing at Iowa. 7 yards per carry is nuts. So, yeah, Caleb Johnson is a really intriguing prospect, and I'm really excited to dig into his tape when we get there. So that's who I took at 201.
At 202, I went with another running back, Nicholas Singleton of Penn State, a guy that has really phenomenal size at 6 foot, 227. Rushed for over 1,000 yards as a freshman. His overall stats are down this year, but he's still averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Just a good combination of really impressive size and, from what I saw on the brief film analysis, really good movement skills for that size.
Yeah, for sure. He was a 5-star prospect for a reason, was the number 1 running back in his class. He also has 4 receiving touchdowns this year. Arguably one of the most from a pure talent standpoint, he's up there with any running back in this class. And it seems like this year his vision is much improved. The receiving game has kind of been added to his arsenal this year in a more significant way. So, yeah, I think that's a great pick there at the 202. Jackson, you're up at the 203. Who'd you take?
At the 203, look, it is tight end premium. We've already discussed that. And I don't think there's a guy in a tight end premium league that has higher upside than Penn State's Tyler Warren. You look at him, and it's funny because we cut up film for our film room, and we were cutting up some of the Penn State guys, and then you see this guy just pop up on film. And you're like, who is he? You look at his stats this season as a tight end, and they're nuts. 67 receptions for 808 yards and 5 touchdowns. That includes a game where he had 224 yards, 17 receptions against USC. I mean, this guy is a true do-it-all type of tight end. He can run, he can rush with the ball, he can catch the ball. I'm pretty sure he's on film throwing the ball at certain points. I mean, there's not a thing that he can't do. He's got the big body. He's a true receiving tight end, and in a tight end premium league, especially in the second round, I mean, I'm not sure who has higher value than somebody like Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in the conversation with Colston Loveland, who I took at the 110. I mean, he's 6'6", 257 pounds, and he is really athletic, particularly for that size. So he's definitely going to be very intriguing in fantasy football drafts. At the 204, I went with Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama. And mixed reports on this guy. He has all the athleticism to be this year's, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, whatever. I mean, obviously, I don't think that he's the passer that Jaden Daniels is at all. On film, there are major question marks. But there's a good chance that an NFL team falls so in love with his traits that he gets drafted in the first round. And if that happens, I mean, a guy with his rushing upside at the 204 in a Superflex draft, I mean, he has the potential. If there's anybody that has the potential to be much higher than this come April, it's Jalen Milroe. But he also could be one of the guys that we do a 4-round mock on, and he's not in it come April because there's some major red flags in his game too. And if he doesn't get the draft capital, I'm not going to be interested. But
I can see
we'll
him
see.
I can see him taking the Jalen Hurts approach, where he gets drafted in the second round. A team takes him. He's not a great passer of the football, but he's got that rushing upside. I mean, they profile really similarly when it comes to just a trait standpoint. And obviously that would be the ceiling because you look at where Jalen Hurts' value is right now. But like
For sure.
I could see that path.
Yeah. So Rupert, who'd you take at 205?
I went with a wide receiver, changed it up a little bit. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. He's a senior. He's been putting up over 900 yards every year, like clockwork, it seems. Big guy, 6'3", 210 pounds, and it looks like he knows how to use the size and go up on the perimeter and high point the ball. So it looks like a guy that you can, stick out on the outside and win against cornerbacks, down the field.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost to 1,000 yards receiving, and what you don't see there is that he's actually missed time this year. So he would have shattered 1,000 yards had he stayed healthy, and dominating in the SEC. 6'3", 210 pounds. He's fast. He's a lot of what you're looking for if you're shooting for an upside play in the middle of the second round. So I like that pick a lot. Jackson, who'd you take at the 206?
Yeah, the 206. I feel a little gross about this. I'm not going to lie,
should.
but I took Carson Beck, the quarterback out of Georgia. Look, Carson Beck has not been as good as we thought he was going to be this year. I mean, you're talking about somebody that was potentially a consensus first-round pick. I'm not sure if he's that anymore. I mean, he's had some up and down games. I'll admit that. You look at Texas, where he only passed for 175 yards, 3 interceptions. Couldn't really get it done against Ole Miss either. But then I watched Saturday's game. I watched a Carson Beck whose back was against the wall, who had to win or else they were going to get, booted out of playoff talk. And what did he do but go out there and throw for almost 350 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 picks? He looked accurate. He looked poised in the pocket. Does he have some struggles and some consistency issues? Yeah, he does. But I'm swinging for the fences in the middle of the second round and potentially hoping I can land a quarterback that maybe has that I don't know, Broncos quarterback. Help me out.
Bo Nix.
That Bo Nix pathway where somebody just takes a shot on him and maybe we get lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, you should feel gross about this because this is, we give Rupert a hard time about knowing that he's not a Devy player. This is where you are a Devy player, because anybody that didn't play Devy and was just watching the football games would not take Carson Beck. But it's like, but he was the QB1 in the offseason. So maybe he still goes first round. And I personally don't think so. He's thrown 12 interceptions this year to 19 touchdowns. He's not taking care of the football. He doesn't have a ton of mobility. He does have a big arm, but I don't think he's a first round talent, and I don't see a lot of fantasy upside here.
I can't quit him, Cooper.
Yeah, well, if there's anybody that, come April, we don't have in a 4-round mock draft, it would, in my opinion, Carson Beck has as good of a chance to be that guy as anybody that we've taken here tonight. So here at 207, I went with another quarterback who is much more talented than Carson Beck, and that is Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of LSU. He hasn't been perfect this year, and it's his first year starting. He waited his turn, was a talented prospect, was expected to start last year, but Jaden Daniels won the job, so he waited his turn. He didn't transfer. He stayed put. And, this year he's thrown for over 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns to just 11 interceptions. But even more than the stat sheet is, like, his arm talent is off the charts. He can make every throw. And I think he might stay in school because he's only got the 1 year of starting experience. And he does need to do a better job taking care of the football. 11 interceptions. I just gave Carson Beck crap for having 12. So I'm not trying to speak out of both sides of my mouth here. But I think if you were to ask me between the two guys, which one is more likely to be a first-round pick, I think Garrett Nussmeier has a much, much better chance at that. And I've already heard a lot of the guys like Brugler and some other, top NFL draft evaluators raving about the kid. So Jim Nagy is raving about him, which means if he does decide to come out, he's probably going to be in the Senior Bowl, which has a chance to boost his stock. So, I like taking a shot on Garrett Nussmeier here in the back half of the second round.
And this is the point where Rupert broke my heart in the mock draft right here.
I think this is also a testament just to how deep this running back class is, that I'm still able to get what looks like a really great running back prospect in Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee, a guy that's just dominating the SEC this year, has over 1,200 yards, 21 touchdowns. And there's a reason why Jalen Wright was splitting carries last year, and Dylan Sampson's the reason. Really powerful guy. He's not the biggest running back, but it seems like he plays with really good power and contact balance to kind of offset his size not being 225. Really good speed and explosive through the hole. Really impressed with what little bit I've watched of him so far.
Yeah, I'm really curious when we dig into the All-22 what we're going to see, because Jalen Wright was also a guy that, like, when you just watched the highlights or watched the game live, there would be moments where you're like, wow, this guy looks really good, but then we got into the tape and we didn't love him. Dylan Sampson, I'm not trying to helmet scout like, because they played for the same team, but that offense really is hard to scout because it's this Mickey Mouse offense that would never work in the NFL, but it just spreads out these college teams so much and opens up these huge running lanes. And Dylan Sampson, like Jalen Wright, like they've got an archetype that they're looking for. They're looking for fast. Dylan Sampson fits that. He's going to blow up the combine. At some point, there's going to be a lot of hype around this kid when we're in the middle of rookie season. And I'm curious when we get to the tape if we're going to like him as much as everybody else does, or if he's going to be another Jalen Wright for us where we're a little underwhelmed. But regardless, I think here at 208, it's a solid pick. So Jackson, 209, who you got here?
209, I plan on staying on the trek of guys that I can't quit and that they used to be so good. And I'm taking running back Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State. Look, Ollie Gordon is statistically down in every single category this year, and I'm not going to ignore that fact. What I do want to talk about is, like, just last year, as a sophomore, he rushed for over 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He looked explosive. He looked agile. He looked good between the tackles. And then this year, just that offense is just down. He's down in yards per carry, which is still 4.2. So, I mean, it's not horrible, I guess.
For college, dude, that's horrible. College running backs, if you're under 5 yards a carry, we got problems compared to NFL prospect.
I'm trying to make a lot of it. I am interested to see, once I get into the tape, is it him or is it something else?
Yeah.
Because last year he was so good. And I don't know what happened, but but before we do, obviously we haven't done any sort of film watching on these guys yet.
Yeah.
Or we've done minimal film watching. In the back of the second round, I feel like from just purely based on the talent that he had last year, you got to take him here.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if he even comes out because he's a junior, so he would be an early declare. So he's got the eligibility. If he's like, hey, my stock's way down, I'm going back to school. At this point, it seems like that's probably the most likely outcome. But I agree with you. I am interested to get in the tape and see what's going on here. I do think I felt like he was a little overrated last year just based on the, he's playing in the Big 12 and they're not playing any defense and he's putting up the monster box score numbers. How many people were actually watching Ollie Gordon film last year? I mean, he's 6'2", which is big for a running back. He's an upright runner. And, I just think on film, he never looked to me. He didn't look bad, but he didn't look like this incredible top shelf NFL running back prospect. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out with him. I have no issues really with that pick here at the 209. I mean, we're back half of the second round. I think he'll probably be lower than that or not even in the draft when we get to April, but we'll see. So Couple more picks here to finish up. I'm here at the 210, and I went with a guy that's been a my guy for a very long time, and I don't know if he's going to end up declaring. I don't know. It's been a little bit of a rocky season, better than last year, but a little bit rocky. But that's Evan Stewart, wide receiver out of Oregon. You're talking about a guy that came in as a 5-star prospect, was absolutely lighting it up for Texas A&M as a true freshman, and the wheels kind of fell off his sophomore season, not just for him, but for Texas A&M in general. And then he transferred to Oregon, and I was really hoping that this would be a monster year in that pass-happy attack with a much better quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, and it's been all right. 609 yards and 5 touchdowns is not terrible by any stretch. He's had some stinker games, 1 catch, 19 yards, 3 catches, 16 yards. But here lately, he's starting to come on strong. He's become a much bigger part of the offense as the season has gone along. He's clearly kind of their deep threat. Tez Johnson is that guy getting all the easy stuff underneath, racking up the receptions. So Evan Stewart's been a little bit more feast and famine. His depth of target is way up there. He's averaging 13 yards a catch. But I still feel like I see high-level NFL traits when I watch him on film. It'll be interesting to see if he comes out this year, and if he does, what kind of draft capital he gets. But for me, you talk about guys that you just can't quit. And for me, Evan Stewart is definitely one of those guys.
Well, he has all the talent to be a guy that could potentially be the best wide receiver in this class. Like talent-wise, he has that, but like it just hasn't translated until you know. So it's interesting.
Yeah. All right, Rupert, 211. Who you got here?
At the end of the second round, I felt like in a Superflex, I just had to go quarterback here, and I went with Drew Aller, Penn State, a guy that has all the physical tools, 6'5", almost 240. And it just seems like the prototype that some NFL GM is going to fall in love with him and say, I can fix this guy. And I feel like he's going to get pretty good draft capital because of that. It seems like he's had a...
So you're telling me he's Will Levis?
That was exactly going to be my comparison.
It's so funny because as not the Devi guy, Rupert doesn't know how much we wanted to throw up watching his film last year. It was so gross.
It's been a little better this year, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to interrupt your take there, Jackson, or Rupert rather, but yeah, I mean, I think he's probably going back to school would be my guess. I don't think he's shown enough to declare early. And, obviously how many quarterbacks have we talked about here tonight? I mean, we talked about Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. So that's 2 in the first round. Nick Singleton. No, that's a running back. What am I talking about?
He's
Milroe. QB what?
QB 6 right now. He's a 6 quarterback.
So, I mean, yeah, there were 6 quarterbacks that went in the top 6 last year. What are the chances of that happening again? I would guess that I don't know. We still haven't talked about Quinn Ewers. I'm not the biggest Quinn Ewers guy. I personally would take Quinn Ewers over Drew Aller as well. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think probably for 2026, if he can, we say that every year. It's like if he can bounce back and show that he's put it all together, then maybe. And then he keeps being basically the same guy. But yeah, I don't know. Drew Aller, it's like in the Bible. Bear with me here. In the Bible, all right, when Saul is like a head taller than everybody else and he's handsome and he looks the part of like what a king should look like, but he's a terrible king. That's Drew Aller, but at quarterback. He's like everything that a quarterback should look like externally, but he's just not a good quarterback.
Why do you hate Will Levis so much? That's what I want to
know. Same reason. To copy and paste everything I just said about Drew Aller, except I will say Drew Aller has taken better care of the football. Last year, he actually only had 2 interceptions. This year, he only has 5 interceptions. Will Levis was like double that in one season. I mean, that dude did not take care of the football at all in college.
But has Drew Aller done one of these? If you're listening to the podcast, you didn't see
there you
that.
go. The audio, he's over there flexing. But all right. Enough fun here. Let's wrap up the show. We're at 45 minutes. So here at the 212, bring us home, Jackson.
At 212, I took Tez Johnson, the other wide receiver out of Oregon, for the reasons that you mentioned him earlier, right? He's somebody that has just produced consistently year in and year out. He's an undersized wide receiver. I think he's like 165 pounds or something. I'm not looking it up right now, but he's small. And he's not a guy that's going to be an alpha type of wide receiver. He's probably prototype for the slot his entire NFL journey. But that's not a death sentence, right? That's not as bad as it used to be. Like, the slot receivers are actually really productive at the next level. He's a quarterback's best friend. I mean, he's going to be a PPR nightmare at the next level if he gets in the right situation. I mean, this guy just catches passes all game, and I think that's going to rack up fantasy points. So it's somebody that you're taking a swing on. Give me the PPR beast, Tez Johnson.
All right, so that is going to wrap up our round 2. We went Caleb Johnson, running back Iowa at 201. Nicholas Singleton, running back Penn State, 202. Tyler Warren, tight end Penn State, 203. Jalen Milroe, quarterback Alabama at the 204. Trey Harris, wide receiver out of Ole Miss at the 205. Carson Beck, quarterback Georgia at the 206. Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback LSU at the 207. Dylan Sampson, running back Tennessee Vols at 208. Ollie Gordon, running back Oklahoma State at 209. Evan Stewart, wide receiver out of Oregon at the 210. Drew Aller, quarterback out of Penn State at the 211, and finished it up with Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon at the 212. So if you guys have stuck with us this long, we appreciate you guys listening. You can find me on Twitter /X at CouchScoutsFF. You can find Jackson at DevyMatt, DEVY Matt. And you can find Rupert at Matthew Rupert FF. And we would love to interact with you guys on there. You can also find our free Discord in the link in our bio. We would love for you to come join our growing community. Check out the website. If you're listening, leave us a 5-star review, like, comment, all that kind of stuff. It just really, I can't tell you how much it helps as we're trying to grow the show and grow the platform. So thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Enjoy. Actually, we will not. We'll see you in 2 weeks. So happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Later.